Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today.
When I first joined at the station manager at the time, who installed it into me that, professionalism and mindset was key. I've been in several situations now where the public look at you for reassurance and to take control, whether it be someone who's fallen over in the street, bleeding from the head and stuff like that. Oh, it's Rob, he's a fireman. Rob, they call you over. And they have pride in yourself to be able to do that and people to look for you for that. It is incredible, One of my colleagues collapsed right in front of us, and people talk about this antagonal breathing that you get when someone's basically dying, and that was him. And we're giving CPR, clearing the vomit from his face and giving him mouth to mouth. I was gagging after every breath. I remember looking up and looking around at everyone thinking, I've had enough, can someone take over? And just looking at their faces, you think, no one wants to take over here, but I'm not going to let you die.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together. Rob, welcome to the podcast. How you doing, brother?
I'm very well, thank you, and thanks for inviting me to come along and have a chat.
Mate, I was when I first saw about your story, it was kind of around British Firefighter Challenge. Now, I know you'd actually done a couple before that, but I've usually got my head elbow deep in either hosting it or competing in it or something like that. But this year I had the privilege of speaking to a few people that had worked with you in the past or had sort of come across your story, and it was a really unique one. And I think just something that most people, because most people have such different journeys in the UK Fire and Rescue Service and also the emergency services as a whole. Sometimes they can reach points in their career where they always just think differently about it, or they have a different thought about it than when they first went in. But just give us a brief, how's the body feeling? Because you've just finished, you did some more competitions after the BSc, didn't you?
Yeah, I've been very active this year, and the body always aches now. When you get to that age, it's a matter of just basically managing those aches and pains as you go along, really.
Why did you choose to change gears with it this year? What was the motivator?
Just to be honest, I think I don't feel any younger, really, and I thought it was a chance for me that I was doing very well in the British Firefighter Challenge, and winning it last year for my age category and this year, and I just wanted to push myself and see really how good I am personally, but also, I've met some fantastic people through doing the British one, and I've done a couple of European ones last year. And just before COVID, and it was just seeing where my standing is, and to push myself that little bit harder. Because as you know, everyone you meet, I don't think people appreciate that. Every time I go to one of these, there's always someone there that inspires me, and I just sit back in awe of some people and think if they can still do it, or the times they're pushing, whether they're younger or older, what can I push myself to do?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that has people sort of disassociate or step away from the services if they don't get the benefit of having those sort of interactions. But again, you kind of have to put yourself into that position. It's not just going to land itself on your lap. You know what I mean? You have to go out there and put yourself in almost a position of vulnerability. Because how old are you now? Sorry,
I'm 54, so it's 55 next year.
Absolutely love that, brother. Because I always talk to people about this kind of narrowing path of health and fitness. It's kind of like going up a mountain or something like that. And when you're young, you're kind of down the bottom of it and the path's really wide and you can bounce around and mess about and, have a load of drinks and fuck about with your diet and nutrition, all that sort of stuff. But as you get a little bit further up and a little bit further up, the path gets a lot narrower. Doesn't mean you can't do it. Doesn't mean you can't keep going, but you have to be a lot more kind of concise and present about the decisions that you make. Do you know what I mean? The body, it doesn't recover as well. It can't take the abuse both through sleep or through substances or alcohol or food or whatever your vices might be, it doesn't have that. Do you kind of feel that correlation? And what have you changed to trying to stay in this sort of stay on the path, really?
Oh, well, definitely. I mean, throughout the years, when I was younger, I was like the rest of me. You go out and drink the weekends and late nights and whatever. But I think as you get older, I think definitely my training regime's changed over the years. I get to listen to my body more, even to the point where on occasions I change my diet depending on what competitions are coming up.
Really?
And it's sharing the knowledge with the people on the course as well, what the type of things they do. And so definitely I listen to my body more now, and I mean recently I hardly done any training between competitions and just kept the competitions as my training as such, because I knew if I tried to train between them, then one, my performance would dip, and two, I could struggle through fatigue and possibly injury, really.
That's a big one, mate. That's a big ego adjustment as well, because like you say, in those gaps between competition, the goal really is just mobility, just stay mobile and keep that range of movement going and just stay flexible. It's just about holding fast. I don't think between competitions, stuff like that, I didn't run any further than like 1K or something like that, and most of it I might even walk, to be honest with you, just to be able to keep my body lucid and keep my body in that kind of bracket. Because like you say, injury avoidance is such a worrying thing. I'm actually sitting here today with a ruptured right patella tendon.
Oh,
so
wow.
Fucking hell, mate. Honestly, I was taking part in something that people will probably see a little bit more of in the new year when it comes out. But blew out my fucking right knee. Wow.
Oh, wow.
Never done something. Well, that's an exaggeration. I tore my right pec major once before. I tore my entire pec off. So that was about a 6-month recovery from that, and this is probably looking like a similar sort of fashion. I mean, I'm a little bit smarter now, and I don't abuse my body with the same sort of shit that I did back then. So I think this recovery is going to be quicker than that one. But yeah, it's very humbling and really, really narrows your focus on, okay, what do I want to be doing? Because I look to people like you, that inspire me, and I think, in 20 years, I want to still be doing things like what Rob's doing. Do you know what I mean? I still want to be able to take part in stuff. I still want to be able to run around with my kids. I still want to be able to climb mountains. I still want my body to serve me. And you really have to have a little bit of an adjustment. When did you first realize that you needed to start tweaking stuff or adapting stuff? You mentioned about changing diets and habits and behaviors. When did that first start rising in the sort of consciousness?
I think, to be honest, I mean, after 2017, really. I mean, that was my first British Firefighter Challenge. I mean, before that, I've done the 3 peaks for 9 years, really, with a gap here and there, but virtually 9 years consecutive.
Bloody hell.
And it was kind of, without sounding big-headed or whatever, I wanted to be the weakest link in the team, because I wanted to see how far I could push myself. But I think you appreciate, trying to get 4 people to do the 3 peaks in a fast time is very hard. I mean, it's not an easy challenge to do. And I got every single medal going apart from the platinum, which would be to do the 3 peaks in less than 17 and a half hours, including traveling.
Wow.
And so it's kind of virtually running up and down the mountains. And we never achieved it, to be honest. I was quite disappointed on never achieving it, and the closest we got was 17:37.
No,
so we were 7 minutes out. But it's one of those things. I mean, I think I'm very fortunate in respect as that I kind of block out the pain that I'm in and channel it into others, if that sounds.
Yeah.
And so I kind of try and motivate people along the way, and that takes my mind off the pain that I'm in. So, so after that finished, because the fire brigade finished doing it, it was kind of.
Sorry, just pause on that. Was it something the fire service were actively supporting? Take us back to with the first time you did it and what it was all about.
Yeah, so I mean, the British Firefighter Charity used to run the 3 peaks, and every year. And it was a very, very well organised event, to be honest. And basically, it was to do with BA tallies as well. So you got your tally when you started off, and when you got to the peak, you got another tally, and then you brought that down and went on to the second peak, whatever. And between mountains, you had a certain amount of time to travel. So I think one was 5 hours, one was 6.5 hours, I think, between mountains because they didn't want you speeding, obviously.
Yeah.
So if you got there before that, you were just held back until that time had elapsed. So there was no point in putting your foot down and getting there in 4.5 or 4 hours.
Did a member of the team have to do the driving, or could you have a volunteer driver, if you know what I mean, someone else supporting?
Yeah, so all in all, the minimum you could have was 4 runners or walkers, and you had to have a minimum of 2 dedicated drivers because of the fatigue.
Yeah.
And so we used to go with a team of 6 the majority of the time. And as that was basically up and down each mountain as quick as you can go and travel between those, trying to eat and sleep and get cramp in the minibus. And there used to be all kind of noises coming from the minibus with people trying to stretch out and getting cramped. And then you finish at the last peak. So we always used to finish off at start at Ben Nevis and then go to Scarfield Pike and finish on Snowdon.
I've never done the 3 peaks before. It's always been something that's been on my list, and I'll be honest with you, I was totally oblivious to the fact that they used to actively do it with part of the Firefighter charity. So that's something I myself learned in it. When you were looking for people to take part in that, what do you think is the sort of ideal? Because it very much is a firefighter's task in terms of lifting and moving and ascending and all that quad drive and all that sort of stuff. What do you think is the ideal sort of size and makeup of someone that does an event like that?
Like you said, I mean, you've got to be mobile, and I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I mean, I didn't think someone of your size could move that quick, but you do. So
I'm a bit of a fucking strange anomaly, mate. Yeah, I always say to people, somebody like me should not be winning medals. I'm too fucking big. Do you know what I mean? I'm 18 stone most of the years when I'm competing in the challenges, and I'm like, I always say about 12 stone. 12 stone is an ideal firefighter in my head. I'm talking a male firefighter there, so I apologise to anybody else. But maybe a female, even a female, I'd like them to be 10 or 11 stone. I think they've got to be about that to do all the different dynamics.
Do you know, I think it's quite amazing, really, because I mean, you say about what the body type is, but I mean, this year in Austria, there's a Slovakian team, and there's a young lad there that he looks I think there is another one actually from Yocum Fire Service in Canada. But he's just turned 18, and he's absolutely smashing a course. And to look at him, he's like a stick. And how he moves so quick and lifts those weights, I don't know. But he's. I mean, this year his dad was in the fire service as well and still competes. So it was really nice to see dad and son going to tandem. Beautiful. And then he got quicker as the week went on, and in the end, I think he finished on a 1:49, which was absolutely incredible, And for a young lad of 18, I mean, he's going to be knocking on the 1:30s, below 1:30s, I think, in no time at all.
Yeah.
So you look at people who think they should never be doing that, and there was a young lady there again who was so small but her determination to finish the course was absolutely phenomenal. And then she wasn't the quickest, but she got through every single discipline, and you thought there's no way she's going to pick up this 80 kilogram dummy, but she did, and she just focused and just without putting it down once across the line in something like 4.5 minutes, I think, which was absolutely amazing. And so I mean, you think you've got this ideal body shape and body structure, if you like, but every time you go, people amaze me at kind of what they can do. So I think it's the individual. You look at what you do. I mean, personally myself, when I first started out, I was doing the donut pour loft in something like 22 seconds, and I was watching you guys do it, and you do it like 7 seconds, and I'm thinking, Jesus, these guys are incredible. And I thought, so if I'm going to do anything, I've got to build my upper body strength up and start trying to compete around those times. Now I'm down to about 12 seconds. The quickest I've done is 10, but my average I think is about 12 seconds. So it's those type of things that you have to look at. You analyse yourself, and then you go away and put a training plan in progress to try and achieve what you want to achieve.
When you think about training and stuff like that, and I just want to, because I always do this, I get straight down a rabbit hole and we kind of recycle back into the fact that the reason I wanted to talk to you and your story being so unique, because it kind of feeds into what we're talking about now, is you've you were in the fire service for a great number of years and effectively did in the entirety of one career, then retired, or took redundancy and retired, and chose to come back as a recruit, despite, because you finished as station manager, didn't you?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you went all the future station manager and then go back as a firefighter. And this is, I want to pause that there for a second, but also intertwine it with the fact that, what do you think when we speak about those young individuals like that girl taking 4 minutes and the mindset, when you apply that to firefighting and at your career, and you've worked at different stations and airports, and we're going to go into all of that, but how much of that do you think is mindset? Because sometimes I see, incredible physical athletes, but they don't make the best firefighters at times.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I think mindset is a huge thing. I mean, I was very fortunate in the way I was brought up, one with my parents, and two with when I first joined, which was the retained fire service, which in Kent they call it on call now. But the station manager at the time, who instilled it into me that professionalism and mindset was key. To right down to kind of maintaining the equipment. If there was a bit of rust on that equipment, I mean, if he found a bit of rust on it, you knew you were in for a good bollocking, to be honest. And because at the end of the day, I mean, the best recruit you can be, you've got to look to improve every day. And it may be something silly, like you walk past a bit of equipment what needs cleaning. Well, no, stop, walk back and clean it. No matter what you're doing. And it is definitely a mindset in being the best you can. I see recruits or firefighters now who struggle with knots and lines, and you think, why struggle? All it takes is 5-10 minutes a day to go out in the bays when you're on a break or whatever, and throw a few knots and lines until such time you can do it with your eyes shut. So I think it's definitely kind of what you want to be within the fire service, and you can achieve anything really.
I think it is so much more about that mindset and desire and drive and persistence as well. Because, like you said, even when I joined, and certainly when you joined, we didn't have access to things like YouTube and stuff like that. There's apps you can download for, just to pause on that knot tying aspect for a moment like that. There are so many more resources now. It's all about your resourcefulness. I remember when I first joined, I would have to cycle down to the local fire station and just stand in the back and try and listen to stuff, or I would have to go to the library and try and find an old manual or sign out a book, or go over to a different station to borrow a manual for 2 weeks and then go home and write it out on an A4 pad and copy the bits that I wanted to know for later, and then make sure I had it back. And it was stamped as to what station it belonged to. All of this shit's on the internet now. All of this stuff's freely available, but I feel like that resourcefulness. And it's not a complete sheep dip. There are some incredibly driven and resourceful people joining the services, but as a sweeping statement, it doesn't seem as prevalent as perhaps it once was. I mean, what age were you when you joined?
So I joined back in 91, so 21, 22.
What did you do before that then? So you left school, and what were you doing milling about for 4 or 5 years?
It's to be honest, I was a bit of a joker at school. And I left school with nothing really. Back then it was CSEs and O levels.
Yeah.
And it's not till I left school I thought, you actually been a bit of a plonker really. And so I went to college for 3 years and got 8 O levels, and I was really good in the kind of the physics, maths, chemistry, that kind of thing. So left college there and went labouring for a bit because there was no work about. So I was never one for sitting around and doing nothing. So
you weren't fucking allowed to when I was a kid.
No, exactly. I had 2 paper rounds.
Yeah.
But so I was looking around for really a job in science, and I eventually got a job. I heard about a job going in a place called Procter and Gamble, which manufacture aerial bowl, does that kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember.
Soap powder. But got told, well, you're better off going in a factory somewhere first and then transferring across into the lab. So I'd done that. I went on a packing line for 18 months, was absolutely bored
That's
to death, to be
demoralising
honest.
shit, isn't it? I worked in a cat and dog food plant doing exactly the same
Yeah,
thing, putting pouches in boxes and rewrapping pallets, and did that
yeah.
for years. And that
But
is character building shit as well, though.
it is, and again, I think it comes down to mindset that you've got to go at the end of it that you want to achieve, and if you're prepared to do that, you can do it. And I knew at some time there'd be a position coming over that I could go for, and I say after 18 months, a position came up in the laboratory, and I transferred across.
Mm.
And it was through that process that while I was working in the lab that I got talking to a retained firefighter. And we sat down over many tea breaks chatting about it, and I've talking about the jobs he's been on and whatever. And I thought, wow, that sounds really interesting,
Mm.
And so he said, well, why don't you come along and have a chat with the station manager? And so I did, and that was where I started really, and I managed to get it in a retain then, and that's the difference between now and then, I suppose, is that you used to go along to your local station, have a chat with the station manager. If he liked you and you liked him, that was kind of the process. He put in a request to have you on station, and the next minute you fill in the paperwork and you're there.
Yeah, he screams of a little bit of nepotism, but to an extent, that was a much better metric of a person, because you do get like a visceral feel for people's characters and values and all that sort of stuff. And it does feel sometimes like we've painted ourselves into a corner with all of our good intentions of human resources, where we struggle to just sometimes get, a very controversial term, the right kind of people. When I say the right kind of people, I'm just talking mindset. I don't care if you've got 6 legs, 2 legs, black, blue, pink. I really don't care. I want someone that wants to be a professional in the job and has that right sort of mindset. And I don't think we really test for those things very well.
No, I remember he kind of went down, we had a chat, and he said, what do you think? And I said, yeah, sounds really interesting. And he said, well, come along next week and have a look and see it again. So I went along the next week, and then he said, oh, still think you're going to enjoy it? I said, yeah. He said, well, come along next week. And I went along the next week, and I think they were just kind of testing me, kind of how keen I was.
Yeah.
And then kind of after that, they put me through the process, and I become a firefighter in a retained, So, I mean, recently, I applying for positions when I left the airport fire service. I was having to go through assessment after assessment after assessment, and some of these assessments, to be honest, Pete, were absolutely mind blowing. To the point where I actually applied for Essex, and I had to do a thing called Arctic Shores, which was just like I don't know if you've heard of it at all.
Arctic Shores, no, go on.
Yeah, but it's like playing games on a computer, and you sit in front of a computer, and one of them was blowing up balloons, and basically you hit the space button 3 or 4 times to blow up this balloon, and it may pop after 2, and it may pop after 8,
All right.
and then every time. But at certain points you could save. So before the balloon popped, you saved it, and you got a certain monetary value. And at the end of it, there was about 40 balloons, I believe. That how much monetary value you saved was what you got basically. And the games were like that. They just went on like that.
What the fuck is that assessing? Risk appetite or what?
Well, that's what when you go back and analyse it, I think that's what they're doing. Is kind of what is your kind of outlook? Are you willing to risk that little bit more, or are you do you play safe? And at the end of it, I got a report back saying I wasn't suitable to be a firefighter, and didn't get it. And I thought, okay, I've done 28 years fire service, finished station manager, but I'm not suitable to be a firefighter. Fair enough. But but to me, it wasn't. That it didn't bother me too much, to be honest. That's the process they've got, and that's what you've got to get through. But the thing that kind of amazed me was I've got friends in the retired fire service who were going for whole-time positions, who had to do the same test and got told they were unsuitable as well. And you think, well, hold on, you're in the job now. You've been in the job 5-6 years. They're paying you to do the job. You're getting trained by them, and they're telling you that you're not a suitable firefighter.
This is a funny old grey area. It's something I'm trying to speak to more services about, and it's something I want to speak. We're having the FBU on soon. It's something I'm going to ask them about, and other unions we're interested in having on. But it's like, how do you think there is a difference between an on-call firefighter and a whole-time firefighter? Let's start there.
Okay, yeah, that's another debate, isn't it?
Yeah, let's blow
I,
that fucker open for a second.
yeah. Okay, well, when I first joined the fire service, there was a massive disparity between whole time and retained, and it was no fault of the retained fire service. It was just the lack of training they had, really.
Mm.
So I was exceptionally fortunate in that the station manager of our retained station was ex-London from Whitechapel, I believe he served. And he was fantastic. I can't praise him enough for his attitude and the way he wanted to run the station. It was a very professional station. And I do put down my service, you know, the way I've turned out a lot to him in respect of what he taught me and the discipline he installed in me right from the word go.
Man.
Uh,
You
but
had
there
to be
was,
receptive of that as well, though. Sorry to interrupt for a second, because some people struggle with that authoritative style sometimes. I love it.
yeah,
I'll still
without a
call
doubt.
people sir and stuff now. That's just the way I like to be. I like to treat people, and I like that aspect of discipline. It's just really good for me. It's a nice structure. Doesn't make me or anybody else less approachable, but some people, it has connotations of bullying or abuse or potential for elitism or something like that, and some people really struggle with it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and but for me, I'm in, you know, exactly the same as you. I love the discipline in it, and I think it brings respect, and it gives you a sense to strive. You know, you want to be the best you can, and you want respect from people, but you've got to earn that.
Absolutely.
And so for me, it wasn't an issue at all, and I say I do credit him a hell of a lot today with the way I've turned out to be a firefighter and my whole outlook on the fire service. Uh, but the thing that I used to get me was we were all told with the same brush, but I was very fortunate as well. I was in a 2-pump retain station, and we were sitting in the middle of 3 whole time stations. So we used to get to the calls quite a lot with them, and I sat down quite early on in my career as well, actually, and it was quite a kind of people kind of looking at me saying, "No, shut up, Rob." And we sat around. We had to stand by a station, a whole time station, and a whole time crew there, and they would kind of have little digs at us somewhere, and I just turned around to them one day. I said, "What's your issue with the retained?" And they were kind of taken back that I'd addressed this, and they said, "What?" And I said, "Well, you always put us down." I said, "But to me, we're an asset to you." And he said, "Well, what do you mean by that?" I said, "Well, for instance," I said, "I work in a laboratory." I said, "Dave here is an excellent chemist." I said, "Tom is a fantastic mechanic." I said, "So there are resources that you haven't got within the fire service. So when we turn up that job and it's a chemical job, straight away we say to Dave, right, Dave, what have we got here? What can we do?" And without even referring to any notes or anything, it's right, don't put water on that, or, you know, "Oh, that's all right, that's not harmful or that." I said, if we've got a problem, if we go to an RTC and we need to do something, it's right, Tom, you know, what can we do here? Right, okay, get me a spanner, get me this. And with no time at all, he's taking this apart and the person's out, you know.
Yeah.
And so to me, I mean, they're an asset to me. I mean, but they just need, I think it's improved over the years, definitely. But you still get kind of your stations that don't train that well. And I think it comes down to the leadership, really, if I'm completely honest.
100%.
You know, and you need the right person in charge to get the best out of those people on station, because I think everyone's willing. But and to me, it was a way for me to open my eyes to, was it the service for me, if you like. It's a good way to get into the fire service, to see whether you can stand it, to be honest. I mean, as soon as I passed all my training within the retained, one of my first incidents was a double fatality. And that was incredible in respect. I come home and sat there and thought, can I handle this, or is it for me? And I think that makes or breaks you, really.
Yeah.
And I still remember, you know, as vividly today as I do all those years ago, you know, the first one. Well, we remember all of them, to be honest, but that was my first one. And it was something where I sat back really and thought, yeah, I want to do this, you know.
What was it? You say it was a double fatality. What was the conditions of it?
It was quite a horrific one, to be honest, Pete. It was in the winter months, December time, and it was an area with a sharp bend, and a flatbed lorry had broken down. And a car had come around the corner, seen it at the last minute, and she had tried to swerve out the way, but it kind of gone half and half. So the driver and passenger in that side was okay, but the people in the passenger side, basically, the lorry went through the vehicle.
Wow.
And it was a girl and her brother going to their brother's wedding, and it was the mum and dad in the passenger side.
Fucking hell.
So it's so it's getting me there a bit, but yeah, it was quite a hard one to deal with, to be honest.
Yeah, man.
But it's really strange because we had a right rogue on station, and yeah, he was a good fireman, but a bit of a rogue outside. He's the only one who came around my house at night and knocked on my door then and said, "Robbie, you okay?" And from that moment on, even though he was a rogue, I had the utmost respect for him. Because back then it was, you just deal with it. There wasn't no cancelling then. There wasn't no how you feeling and all that kind of thing. Now it was like all that you deal with it and that's it kind of thing. But it's one of those that you remember, and I remember everyone I've been to. I've seen more than my fair share, I think, but it's something that I joined the service to be because to me, if I'm completely honest, it's a privilege, the skills I've got to save life and the training I get. Throughout my career, I've had excellent training, and to be able to do something like that, and within the retained community as well, you're local. It's your hometown.
Yeah.
So when you're walking down the street, people know you're a fireman, and they know you're a fire person. Sorry, firefighter. And the respect you get from it is second to none. And when you do your open days and your fundraising, the respect and the support you get from the community is second to none. And I don't think you can take that away.
Yeah, I agree with you.
For me, the retained service, I was there for 16 years. Unfortunately, it ended on a bit of a sour note, but the 16 years I took from that was brilliant, and it made me into the firefighter I am today.
How did it end? Did they close the station or?
No, I can't go too much into it really, Pete. But I mean, the station manager at the time, in my eyes and several other eyes, he done something that was very unethical and, to be honest, criminal, and he was pulled up for it by us and suspended for 6 months. We had a choice, really, in respect of a colleague called me up and explained what had happened. And I said to him, well, you've got a choice, really, then. You can either go through the brigade or go to the police or speak to the individual yourself. And he said, well, I want to do it properly, so I'll go through the brigade. And the fellow was suspended for 6 months, come back in the job. How he come back in the job, I don't know, to be honest. And from that point on, he handed the 4 people out that basically had raised it against him. And I was the last one there. The others left. And I just come home one day, sat at the computer and said to the missus, I've had enough of this. I said, I'm resigning. She went, what? She went, but you love it. And I said, yeah, but it's every week I go down there, he's belittling me. He's trying to
find stuff. Yeah.
Really. Yeah. So in the end, I took the brigade to a tribunal for constructive dismissal. And it took 2 years, to be honest, because I was having to go to meeting. And to me, it was a real eye-opener that the union wouldn't represent me because they were already representing the individual.
Wow. Okay.
And every meeting I had was with a higher rank officer. And it was obvious that the higher rank officer didn't want to know and hadn't read the letters I put in for 2 years. And I just sat there, to be honest, and I thought, no, I'm not going to let this individual win. He's got to be accountable for what he's done. And I ended up winning my case. But the individual in person is still serving today because the people above him, to be honest, because the chain of command hadn't dealt with it, really took the brunt of it rather than the individual themselves, which is not what I set out to do at all, to be honest. And so, I left that after 16 years. But I didn't let that tarnish what I had done in those 16 years, to be honest. I'm not going to let one individual kind of tarnish, what I feel the fire service is. And so it was a bit of a weird one because he was in charge of me at the retain station, and I was in charge of him at the airport.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Whoa!
So it was a real kind of, I had to really be professional and kind
That's a
of
testament to you, my friend.
and kind of react the way I did. Even though at several points, I've got to be honest, he did try and goad me to kind of take action against him at the airport so he could have counteract against me. But it was one of those things I wasn't going to get into.
So what made you want to apply for the airport?
Sorry?
What made you want to apply for the airport?
Well, it's a real funny one because I was in the retained for a year, and within that retained station there was two people who worked at the airport, and I got chatting to them, and I thought, actually I want to do this full time, and so they got me interested into the airport, and I applied for Stansted initially and didn't get in, and then I got in at London City Airport, which was a smaller airport. But again, opened my eyes that it was a fantastic opportunity for me because it was a small airport, and I got loads of opportunities to do stuff there. Because, like I said, I was never one for sitting around and doing nothing. And while I was there, I've got I was put in the it's surrounded by 3 sides by water. For those that don't know, so you're in the Docklands, and you're sitting in the middle of the docks really, and you've got three sides of surrounded by water. So we had a water rescue facility. And the moment that water rescue facility went down, the airport closed, costing millions.
Wow.
And believe it or not, in the docks, it used to get quite rough. And at the time, they had an old rescued boat that they had got from a police compound. And it had got a big kind of bumper on it that Greenpeace had put on it so they could smash up against these ships. So it wasn't the best water facility, to be honest. And so in rough weather, it used to virtually sink, and it was only this buffer that used to keep it, this bumper that used to keep it afloat. But obviously the engines were flooded, so the airport went down. So myself and a colleague got tasked with finding a new water rescue facility so the airport would never close. So I had a great time there, going out on all speed boats and rescue boats, and we got in the end we ended up with a brand new pontoon and 2 inflatable ribs with 2 independent engine systems on board each one, so that if one engine went down, the other was still running. And these boats would be turned around every 2 weeks, so one would be in the water, one would be out of the water. And then while the one was out of the water, it was being washed down, engine maintenance, etc., and they just rotated round. So we got a facility there that basically the airport never closed after that. And that was a real interesting time for me, because from not having known anything about boats at all, from being given a task of finding a new waterborne rescue facility for the airport was excellent, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And being quite a quiet airport, it allowed me to do the training I wanted to train as well, and therefore enhance my skills. And I was always wondering about setting up exercises and stuff like that, so it was a real good time for me.
How long were you there for? You did about 6 years there, right?
That's it, yeah. So I'd done that for 6 years, and because it was surrounded 3 sides by water, any aircraft that had any issues really would divert. So we never really saw a lot, to be honest, unless it was on fire and it had to land ASAP. They would divert to other airports. So it got a bit quiet there, and I thought, well, I want to see some action, if you like, and so I applied for Stansted again, but this time I made sure, and I think it's down to mindset. I turned up at the station one day and said, can I have a look around? And I got every bit of information I could on the appliances, the fire service, the airport, even to the point of who designed the airport.
Wow.
And so I remember now, within Stansted Airport, as you go through it, you'll see these big columns that hold up the ceiling, and in the middle is a big nut called a Jesus nut. Why it's called a Jesus nut, I don't know. But even things like that I knew. And what I'd done, I'd come home one day, and back in those days, Pete, I don't know if you remember, we had cassette tapes.
Yeah.
And so I made a few cassette tapes up and read all this information on the cassette tapes. And while I was driving,
I still do that now on my phone. So when I have tests and stuff, I used to have. So I've still got a dictaphone somewhere. I used to do it on a
Yeah,
dictaphone, and now
that's
I
it.
just do
Yeah.
it on my normal phone, and then I listen back
Mm.
to it when I'm driving. Like if I've got an interview or something like that, I'll read off all the positive indicators. Or I'll be reading off my examples, or I'll be, do that, and then just listen to it back on yourself when you're walking, when you're training, when you're driving.
Exactly. Yeah. And I used to do that driving about in my car, and then when I come to the interview, I was waiting for the open questions. Say, well, what do you know about this, or can you tell me about this? And I just spilled out every bit of information I knew. And I remember them just saying, right, we're going to stop you there, because we actually think you know more than the firefighters here. And I walked away from the interview thinking, wow, that couldn't have gone any better, and I got the position. So it's if you want something, I think there's no reason why you can't go out there and get it, really.
Yeah. I would say try and wow people. Do you know what I mean? Really try and
Yes.
bowl them over. Don't go for this competency. Don't go for the pass mark. Don't go for the minimum. Fucking bowl them over. Absolutely bowl
Yeah.
them over, because it is ultimately just time. Just put that time in. Do you know how much time do you spend scrolling social media or watching TV or all that other bullshit? Do you know what I mean? If you really want something, you can say it to some people. You say, "Oh yeah, I really want it." Well, only you know that. You know what I mean? When you go to bed at night and you close your eyes and you say, "Oh, did I really want it today?" Well, no, actually, I tossed it off for 2 hours. Do you know what I mean? That's 2 hours I could have spent doing this or that. And it's not about woe is me and beating yourself up, but it is about having that personal accountability. How much do you really want this?
Oh, 100%. And like I said, I mean, but when I go in for things, it's kind of, if I go to a competition and I come fourth, say, or fifth or whatever, I look back and think, did I really push myself as hard as I could have for this event? And if the answer is no, then I've only got myself to blame. If the answer is yes, you take your hats off to the people that beat you and think, right, I've got to improve,
Mm-hmm.
and so, yeah, it's definitely, I say it's easy to come. I know it's this day and age with work commitments and stuff. It's that people coming from work and they're tired. I appreciate that, and they sit down on the sofa for an hour, and then they get up and do some dinner or whatever. And it's just a matter of trying to get in that routine. Why not come in, put your trainers on, go for a half-hour walk, then come back and do your dinner, and stuff like that. And it is definitely mindset. What did you do to get that position, or what did you do to get to your goal?
Mm.
And I think there's got to be dedication, and there's got to be again, we go back to mindset of what you want to achieve.
So, how early into this, career when you moved to Stansted, was that the first time you went for a promotion, or had you already gone for it before?
No, yeah. So when I went to Stansted, I say I was never one for sitting about. And I was always tinkering with things, and I went for promotion there and got to, back then it was leading firefighter,
Mm-hmm.
and then watch manager and station manager, and so I was lucky enough.
How quickly was that process, and how old would you have been then?
So I was 22 when I started, really. So 6 years. There's 28. Yeah, so not to really my 30s did I really start to push for promotion, really.
What do you think about that now when you see so many people joining the fire and rescue services now, and we're having so many people retire, and there is such a push to for people to develop and for people to get promoted and things like that? There's a fine balance between getting promoted beyond your skill set and not having the level of experience which might perhaps give you a level of authenticity or trust and faith from those in which you are going to be entrusted to lead. There's a fine balance between that, and you can see some people getting promoted quite quickly, very young now. What's your thoughts on
to be
that,
honest,
and you sort of serving until you were 30 before you thought about it?
To be honest, I don't think you can beat experience, and through that experience, you build respect for the years of service. On the exceptional occasions, you do get someone who comes through is very, very good, and people respect that person. But yeah, I mean, I think, in my honest opinion, I think sometimes people get pushed through too quick. I don't know. You get some people that are outspoken that get looked aside. When they go for promotion, they're too outspoken. Which, to be honest, I mean, my thing is, do you want a yes man around, rest people around you, or do you want someone who tells you how it is and lets you reflect on what you're doing?
Yeah.
Personally, I would rather someone say to me face, "I don't think you're right," and okay, well, let's have a discussion. Why don't you think I'm right?
Mm.
And sometimes you've got to be big enough to accept that and think, no, actually, you've got a point there.
What sort of common mistakes do you see when people move into those first positions of leadership? Because I imagine you may have made a few yourself. I certainly made a lot.
Oh,
And
without a
then going
doubt.
into that
Yeah.
station manager position, when you saw new LFs or you saw new sub officers or anything like that, or watch managers moving into those positions, what do you think are some of the common mistakes? Because some people think they need to change when they go for promotion, and it can change people.
Oh, without a doubt. I think, and I would just say, be yourself. You got the position, being yourself, and be yourself moving forward. Don't try and be working someone else's style. Working your own style. And there are, yes, as you move up through the ladder, there are pressures that get put on you that demand that you act a certainly different way. I mean, like I said, I like a good laugh and a joke, but then as you move through the ranks, that you have to tone that down a little bit. That doesn't mean you can't still have a laugh and a joke. I remember, being pulled aside once by a station manager because I'd kind of said something to the chief fire officer, and he said, "Oh, because I like kind of talking to people and being open and honest with people and taking things head on, if you like." And he said, "Oh, the chief fire officer wasn't very happy with those remarks you made and whatever and all that." And I sat back and I thought, "Oh, I don't think I was out of order. I didn't mean to be out of order and whatever." So I went and knocked on his door and said, "Excuse me, Chief, can I have a word?" And he said, "Yeah, come in." I said, "I think I've heard you're not very happy with what I said. I do apologise if I did offend you in any way or I didn't come across how I wanted to come across and all that." And he kind of looked at me a bit puzzled and went, "No." He said, I was all right with that." And I said, "Okay, all right, well, thanks very much." But it was the station manager who didn't like what I said. It wasn't the chief.
The fucking amount of times I've had that, and it's kind of like the very origin of the podcast, because the amount of time before we hit 200, or before we grew into, and there was still nobody in the grand scheme of nobodies, but before we started gaining speed and momentum and stuff like that, the amount of times people are, why the fuck are they talking to you? Why have you got the head of the HMI on? Why have you got these chief fire officers on and stuff like that? And I'm like, because they're just human beings. They put one leg in the trousers, same as we do. Their poo still stinks. Do you know what I mean? These are human beings, and they have a valid opinion. And if they just get out of their own way, I often say it is that messy middle. It's those middle managers sometimes that really struggle. Some, not all, and there's some incredible ones. But yeah, it's a bit like they're between a rock and a hard place. They're not sure where their allegiance lies, or they're not sure what they're supposed to do, and they can often. I think it's one of the most difficult places to be in the UK Fire and Rescue. So I'm totally transparent with people. I'm a watch commander at the minute, and I've been asked several times over the last year or so to go for my station managers, and you know what? I can't find many people at station manager position that seem happy or seem like not somebody that I aspire to. They don't seem to love the job as much at times. Some of the senior leadership teams seem to enjoy it, but again, maybe I'm a bit romantic, but I kind of like where I'm at, and I'm not too eager to rush up the slide, because you can't come back down once you've gone up. Well, you can, like with yourself, you've got a real unique opportunity. So it's a very funny old thing to navigate. Sorry, I went off on a whole sort of segue there, but please carry on, because you're right. Some people think, oh no, you can't talk to so and so like that. And yeah, there's a respect. I don't think that if the chief walks in, I'll stand up, I'll shake his hand and all that sort of stuff. I'm not going to go, fuck you doing it. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to start being disrespectful. There is absolutely an aspect of respect and how we should, appreciate that leadership position and that sort of.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you've got to kind of gauge it, haven't you? I mean, you don't get me wrong. You've got to be a bit sensible and think, right, what environment are we in? Who's about? And what is the context? What is the context of the meeting you're in? And if it's a kind of an informal way you're doing kind of thing, and there's just your crew mates about and whatever, and it's a laugh and a joke, then you treat it as that. When you got other management in the room, and that you give the respect they deserve. So, I remember when I got promoted, the station manager at the time had a word with me, and it came quite a good thing. He said, "Well, as you get promoted and you go along that promotional board, is there's a bridge that you're crossing, and you have to decide how far across that bridge you want to go and how big you want that bridge to be. If you make that bridge too big, then you're going to lose contact with the people below you, but if it's too short, then you're not going to get the respect or you deserve, really." And it's quite a good way of looking at it in respect. There is a bridge there, and you have to build that bridge. The same as I had some very good friends at the airport that outside I socialised with, but at the airport I'm their station manager, or was, and I used to say to them, and they used to laugh and joke outside, and I said, look, I don't care what you do outside, but inside I'll have a laugh and a joke with you, but when I'm in charge, you respect me for what I'm at now, and they were as good as gold about it, to be honest. And they used to rib me about it sometimes. Oh, you've had a bad day today, and you take it out on us. And I said, no, not at all. But it's just I used to get frustrated. I've got to be honest, because I do set myself high standards and try and maintain that. And when I see others, like you said, about not doing the minimum, but the minimum is acceptable.
That's the problem. The pass mark in life is like 60% now for so many things, for like education, for jobs, for fucking standards in general, for dress, for like, and I'm just like, yeah, but doesn't that leave a bad taste in your mouth? Going, oh, I'm just a feather away from shit. Basically, I'm just a hair width away from not being good enough. Well, why have you stopped there? It's like you voluntarily pulled over on the road and gone, oh, this is far enough, and you're like, yeah, but we can still keep going though. And they go, yeah, but I don't need to, do I? Yeah, but don't you get a sense of pride from it? Don't you get a sense of fulfillment? Don't you get a sense of, I feel like I'm a professional at what I do? Where's that?
Yeah. Again, I mean, you speak so much sense, Pete. In respect of pride, I think comes into it as well. I mean, like I said, I feel very privileged in the position I'm in, and to have the training. I mean, I've been in several situations now where the public look at you for reassurance and to take control. Whether it be someone who's fallen over in the street, and bleeding from the head and stuff like that. Oh, it's Rob. He's a fireman. Rob, they call you over.
Yeah.
Whether you've been outside of school and someone's collapsed or something like that. I mean, it's a very privileged, and to have pride in yourself to be able to do that and people to look for you for that is incredible, And so when people kind of say, when you have issues at work, and they say, well, yeah, but that's all we have to do. And I think, I know that's all you have to do, but don't you want to achieve more? Don't you want to strive to be that much better? Then that's the minimum we've got to do.
I don't know where that comes from. I don't, and we're not saying everybody's like this at all. There's some incredible, and I'm really optimistic about some of the raw talent that we've got coming into the UK Fire and Rescue Service, and it's something I wanted to speak to you about because I'd be interested in when you change gears and came back into that recruit level, because I think there is some incredible people. They're very passionate. They're very in love with it. I don't want too much of that complacent bleed over from some people who have gone through some pretty shit stuff. We've had a couple of strikes, and we're potentially going into another strike now. Pay scheme hasn't kept up with the job and all this sort of jazz. And I'm not sitting here pretending none of that exists. However, control the controllables. You know what I mean? Do you want to do the job? Yes. Okay, let's do it as good as we can do it then. Do you know what I mean? Let's do it to the best of our abilities. I always say with my watch and stuff like that, we're in control here, guys. We've got some stuff we need to do today. We've got a couple of metrics we need to hit. But in large, we control whatever we want to do, really. Yeah, if we can eat whenever we want to eat, we can go in the gym whenever we want to go in the gym, we can go and visit stuff in the community whenever we want to do that. So if you think your station's shit and someone else says their station's great, it's not because the stuff's different, the kit's the same, the policies are the same, the uniform's the same. It's the people. That's what it is. Yeah, and the people is you. So if it's shit because of you. Yeah, change your attitude, change your mindset, lean in. Yeah, drown out the voice of negativity and pessimism, and you can do that. That is within your control. Anyway,
I mean, now, that's great. I agree with everything. It is definitely yourself. You look at your outlook. I mean, I go in work every day. I can honestly say, no matter what I've done in my life, I've never got up once and thought I'm going to throw a sickie because I don't want to go to work. And I try and preach this to my two children, that life's what you make it. I mean, when I was labouring, I was cleaning out sewers, and it was literally a shit job.
Yeah.
And I used to get up every morning, and I used to go and work and try and do the best I can, and have a laugh and a joke when I was in work, and come home, and that was it done. I still go and work today, and always say hello to everyone, even a cleaner. Make sure I knew his name.
100%, mate. 100%. Never forget those backroom staff. They're
Yeah.
lifesavers.
And I speak to them. How you been, Dell? You had a good weekend and stuff like that, and always make time for people. And you walk in with a smile. And I say we all have issues at home. There's pressures that get put on us and that, but I never take that to work with me. And the work's a completely different environment for me, where I go in and I do the best I can every day, and I try and make people's life better every day when we go and work. You don't know. You go to some horrendous places sometimes where people's positions aren't as fortunate as yourself,
Mate, I
and
think
they're
it's
living
so
in squalor.
humbling when you see families and there's shit up the wall, or the
Yeah,
kids haven't changed their clothes in weeks, or they're living in the same room with the dogs, and you're just like, what the fuck has gone on here? What? How
yeah,
how did this become normal? And there's a fucking brand new widescreen on the TV, or all the kids are gathered around watching Netflix, and they've got
yeah.
no clothes on, and the fucking window's broken, and you're like,
I know.
what's going
Uh,
on?
uh,
What is going on?
and if I can make that day slightly better for any one of them, then I've
Oh,
done
mate,
what
yeah.
I set out to do.
Those interactions are what it is, because you will be
Mm.
that person's experience of maybe the fire service, but certainly maybe the entire emergency services. That's that experience, and if you can just give them that, bang, you're stood on a stage there, for want of a better description for me, and you can give them
Yeah,
optimism, you can give them a little life lesson, and because it's become from somebody in your position, whether you think your position's shit or not, to them you represent something, and that's where you can just give them that little bit of knowledge, feedback, anything, something that their parents may have said to them 1,000 times, but if you say it, they'll go, oh yeah, maybe that's a bit of all right, yeah, I fancy a bit of that, or they listen, or they go, oh yeah, definitely, and they get involved, and you've got a very 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 privileged position, like you say.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, and no, as I say, and so that's the way I look at it. So I never go and work, and I'm never down. Yeah, there's people that have been at work. There is that they moan, they gripe, and
Fucking energy vampires, mood hoovers,
yeah,
blame throwers, motherfuckers. Honestly,
yeah,
I find them. I narrow them straight down, and
yeah,
I'm probably a bit too harsh on them sometimes. Actually, like sometimes something is going on at home, but after a certain amount of time, it's just bullshit. Because they
yeah,
moan. Some of them moan like, "Oh, we don't get the jobs we used to go to." Yeah, but you moan when we train, and you moan when we go on the jobs. You always want to go back first. You always want to get back into bed. You're not getting off the fucking pump until I tell you to.
mm,
You know what I mean? I'm running out of excuses for you here. I'm getting a little
yeah,
bit, and that's when I start issuing stuff. But yeah, no, I'm like, no, we can't be having this for me. So you spent 8 years, or you were through the position, sorry, for 8 years until you got to that station manager position. What
yeah,
happened when you either made the decision or an opportunity came for you to change gears, and what was the decision to do so?
yeah. So I mean, so I've been there 8 years, and uh, I was getting a bit ground down, if you like. I'm a very active person, and so whenever we go over the 5 grand, I'll be there. I'll still go and set up training and that. And it was getting to a point where, which I didn't moan about it, but as people know, people get their heads down at night. It's not a secret, and so when they were getting their heads down at night, I was still up till 3, 4 in the morning catching up on the paperwork that I had to do.
Hmm.
But that was the way I chose to do it. So but it did kind of start to grind me down a little bit the more I was getting more stuck to the office. And it was getting to a point where during the days I was now being stuck in the office.
Yeah.
And so they came up below me. I was station manager. Below me was 2 watch managers and a crew leader. And then they come along one day and said, oh, we need to do away with 4 watch managers, so 1 from each watch.
Okay.
And take out 1 level of management. So I said, okay. So they went through the process, and they could only get 3. And they were going to have to make that they were voluntary, and that the bomb was going to be kind of compulsory. So they then opened it up to the station managers, and none of us wanted it. So then they come around with a redundant, a kind of a retirement package as well, saying that basically, I think it's the same within local authority, that you actually retire at 55, but you can go at 50.
Yeah.
But every year you go below 55, you lose 4% of your pension pot.
Wow.
And I was 51 at the time, and I thought, well, there's no way I'm losing 16% of my pension. So they come round with the offer saying that they would make up that 16%, so I leave on a full pension, and I could draw that pension. So that was in December 2019. So I come home one day, and the decision had to be made by Monday. This was over the weekend. So I ummed and ahed. I just said to Mrs., do you know what? I'm going to take it. She went, really? I said, I'll go back as a firefighter somewhere. I said, if they're taking away a layer of management, I can see more work being thrown my way, and I'm going to get more and more stuck in the office, which is not what I wanted. I joined the fire service to do. And so I went in there Monday, and they were absolutely gobsmacked that I was going to take it. So I signed all the paperwork.
What was going through your head then? I know you had that conversation with your missus, but there's not a guarantee that you would get back in anywhere. You're 50 years.
No. Saying that, Pete, I've always been confident. I'm confident in my own abilities. And again, I was very fortunate. When I was at the airport, I had a very good chief fire officer who made sure we were very well qualified for what we were doing. Yeah. And I've got qualifications coming at me years, to be honest, Peter, in all sorts, fire safety, risk assessments, radiation supervisor, and loads of things, and so I was confident somewhere I could get a position somewhere, but where it would be is another story, and I was willing to do most things really, because I was 51 at the time, and I thought, well, I've got a few years, 4 years to go really, if I want to, and so I was confident of getting something, but what, I don't know, And it was just by chance that so I got contacted by a colleague in Dubai that, as I signed all the paperwork, come January, he called me up and said, there's a position going in Dubai. Would you be interested? And I said, well, let me know what the terms and conditions are and what it all is, and I'll let you know. And it was for a 3-year contract, going over to train some at the Dubai airport, basically, because they've got a skill fade over there, and they wanted using it as a limited contract because they wanted us to train their blokes up to take over from our positions when we left.
Yeah.
And so I went through the interview stage and everything, and got through all that, and they were in the process of drawing up my contract, and so I thought, this is blinding. I'm going to leave on the 31st of March, get a position in Dubai, which was very, very good money, to be honest, tax-free, and that's for 3 years, and I'm going to walk away from there, and we should be all right. But then, of course, come March 2020, COVID come, and they stopped recruiting straight away. So my contract never got signed and never got sent out to me. And that was that. So I thought, well, I can't retract it now because I've already signed all the paperwork. My money's been sorted out, and so come the 31st of March, I was unemployed. But all through COVID, I continued kind of sending off applications for Liverpool, and all areas around the UK, really. And that's when I started looking into, but again, not many were recruiting. There was a few here and there, and then I was going through assessments. Yeah. And the assessments, I'll be honest, blew my mind. I thought, wow, there's nothing like when I was doing it 28 years ago. And so you had verbal reasoning, mechanical reasoning, all that kind of thing. And I found a website on called Assessment Day. So for any new recruits out there that fancy it, or anyone wanting to go for it, it's called Assessment Day, and it was £40 for the year. And they've got examples of all the different types of assessments that are out there at present. So whatever interview you get, if they come up with a certain test you'll be doing, they've got examples of that. Wow. And you can practice them online as many times as you want. So when I applied for Kent, it was verbal reasoning, and so I went on there, and there was about 20 different examples of verbal reasoning tests, and I just practiced and practiced and practiced. and it done me good, So it proved it's worth the money for £40. And but in the meantime, I got contacted by G3, I think it was, and said, "Oh, there's," and it's all true, Peter. Honestly, I mean, you can ask my wife. It is the conversations we had. They contacted me and said, "Oh, Rob, we've got a position in Afghanistan, Kabul. We want to set up a fire service of 24 firefighters. Would you be interested? Well, why the pandemic's on? So you'll be on a wide base." And I said, okay. So I said, well, and this was for 6 months. And I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose really if the conditions are right. So they sent me through the terms and conditions, and I said, oh, okay, yeah, I'm interested. But then they couldn't get the 24 firefighters, so that all fell through.
Oh, mate. Where did that even come from, though? How did your name get handed to somebody for that?
I think just through industry, to be honest, because obviously I'm not. As soon as I left there, I went on the media sites you do to, LinkedIn and stuff like that. And I know I've proved being in the service as long as I have been. I know quite a lot of people around the world anyway.
Yeah.
In respect of when you're in the airport fire service, which we can touch on in a minute actually, because for anyone who's thinking about going into the fire service, it may be a way in for them. Is that you used to go to the International Fire Training School at Teesside. And when I say international, there was people there from Germany, Hong Kong, all over who used to go there to train. So I used to get contacts through that as well. I mean, at one stage, I applied to go to Bermuda on a temporary contract, and it was for 6 months, and because they needed someone out there at that time, and my governor wouldn't release me for 6 months, which was a shame. But there you go. Going back to the G3, so that fell through, and then they contacted me a few weeks later, said, oh, we've got another position in Kandahar, which is in the south of Afghanistan. And they said it's a big military base. There's 3 positions going. One's for the airfield tender, one's for domestic tender, and one's for fire safety inspections. It's that you're actually too qualified for any of them, but would you do 2 of them? And I said, well, you let me know what the terms and conditions are, and I'll let you know whether I'm interested. And they came back and said, we'd like you to do the fire safety inspections and the domestic cover. I said, oh, okay. And so they told me the terms and conditions were pretty favourable. So I said, okay, I'm happy to do that. And they said, we're demilitarising the base. So it could be 9 months, it could be a year until the base is finished. I said, okay. So they contacted me a week later, said, actually, well, would you do all 3? And the reason being is that as we closed down the base,
pay you more or what?
So again, I said, well, look, as long as the terms and conditions reflect what you're asking me to do, I'm happy to do it. So they said, because as they're kind of demilitarising the base, they're closing down more and more buildings, so there'll be less for you to inspect.
Okay.
So therefore you concentrate more on the domestic and the airfield cover. So I said, okay. So I agreed that, and then about 3 weeks later, I sent all my certificates and paperwork, and the checks were being done. And then they contacted me and said, basically, they're demilitarising early, and so it's not worth me going out there now. So that fell through. And so it was a bit of a turbulent time, really, but I always remained positive. And because all the time I was still going through the process with Kent, which took about 18 months from start to finish.
Wow.
And but when you're talking like you're getting 4,000 applicants for a few positions. I mean, it's still kind of, when I started out, that was the case, and it's still the case in this day and age. You're getting so many. So the fire service is still a very well desired job to be in. And Kent hadn't recruited for 10 years. And so there was a massive kind of gap there, really, that they needed to fill. And so they were taking on 70 personnel this time.
Wow.
But still to get down from 70 from 4,000 odd. And I had my age going against me then, because by this time it was like I was 52, 53. And working as a team, doing this and doing that, and so that was right up my street, because all throughout my career I always kept myself hands on.
Yeah.
Because my outlook was I should know how to work every single bit of equipment on that machine as much as the firefighters. Because you never know when you're going to need to do it. Because the airport fire service is quite a unique one in respect of it's kind of all hands on deck for the first few minutes. Because when you've got an aircraft come in, those first few minutes are critical to get that under control. And so a very aggressive firefighting kind of way of doing things. But also, I mean, when there used to be issues, I used to people used to come in the office and oh, Rob, we can't get this to work, we can't get that to work. And where some would say, well, okay, just defect it, I would be, okay, well, let's go and have a look at it. So I put my pen down, I'll turn off my computer and we'll go out and have a look at it. And not being funny, but 9 times out of 10, we get it working.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of, that gained respect as well. Oh, Rob's going to spend time with us, or there's an issue, Rob might be able to sort it out. So it was always nice to keep hands on. So when I went through the recruitment process, I wasn't rusty as such, or I didn't know what I was doing. I hadn't lost that, there wasn't that gap there. But it still amazed me and it's what we say about how much do you want the job? Because I was kind of, as you can imagine, one of the oldest, if not the oldest, on the day I went. And they say, right, you need to drag this dummy around these 4 cones, and they've got a stopwatch in their hand. So you think, okay, right, they're timing this. So I want to be up there with the best of them, if need be. And you get kind of people walking around these cones, dragging this dummy. And at the end of it, they just put it down as if they're just taking a walk in the park. And you think, do you really want the position? Or where myself, as you both are guessing by now, I got that dummy and tore off like a greyhound as fast as I could to try and get around these 4 cones and post the quickest time. And the same with a functional fitness test. There was people walking through that, and it's, don't get me wrong, I may be misjudging them. I might think perhaps that was the full extent of their exertion. I don't know, but I don't think it was. But you think if you want the position and they've got a stopwatch in their hand, you got a feeling their times are going to play into this.
Now's the time.
They're going to take a look at the quickest ones and think, right, he's good. And so it was good to actually go through that on there. And I say I was very, very fortunate, and I know I am, because I never take anything for granted because of my history and whatever. But that I got the position.
So coming back in and joining as a recruit again, how did you find this new age of training and this new rejoining a watch and just being not just, but being a firefighter again and having to, or being able to just focus on the fundamentals of the job?
Do you know what? I actually loved it. I think it was really what I needed at my time in the career, which was say right, you're at the end of your career. A lot of people thought I was completely nuts.
Why? Did they think you should have had enough by then and you were just going to go off into the sunset?
I think they couldn't believe I've taken my pension and I should be relaxing there and sitting, if you like, my feet up, slippers and pipe. But that's not me, and I still feel I've got a lot to give the job. And from day one, I've never stopped, for want of a better word, loving the job, to be honest. I think it's a fantastic job to be in. And the camaraderie, and especially, joining Firefit as well, the camaraderie within that and the atmosphere there is fantastic, and it makes you appreciate the job you're in and the position you're in. And I think one of the questions you put down when we were talking about this before was what's kind of the best course you've been on. And I've got to be honest, I mean, when I first joined the airport fire service, it was when you started out at the airport fire service, you got what you call a basic ticket. So you went to this international fire training school up Teesside, and you were there for 3 weeks. And once you've qualified for those 3 weeks, you go into firefighting, materials being used, media, stuff like that, disadvantages, advantages, all stuff like that. And it's absolutely mind-blowing. The amount of information getting put in your head for those 3 weeks was incredible. And you come out thinking, I'm never going to pass this. But the course itself, because there was a load of young blokes, 20, 22-year-olds and all that, absolutely living their dream, if you like. It was all residential, and so you build up this massive kind of camaraderie amongst yourselves, and and it was fantastic. It was like, we trained exceptionally hard, and we went out and partied hard as well, to be honest. But it was brilliant. So that, I mean, I've got to be with that. And then coming back all those years now to me being the oldest recruit there on another basic course was fantastic as well, because the blokes there, I could sit back, and don't get me wrong, it wasn't a stroll in the park, but I could relax and enjoy the course. There was a few bits of kind of remote, a bit of rustiness there, and but the majority was okay. But I could relax, and I just enjoyed looking back or watching the new recruits, because that's what I was like all those years ago, and I thought I still hadn't lost it, and I really love seeing them enjoying what they're doing. And it was quite nice because, pretty soon word got out who I was and my history, to the point where I was more qualified than the instructors who were teaching us. But I never kind of took over it at all, and it was quite nice at the end, the kind of the feedback I got back from the instructors and the blokes on the course. And they said, Rob, you never looked down on us whatsoever. Whenever we made mistakes, you didn't look as if we were stupid or anything like that. And I said, well, that's not me. It's just not my nature, And during breaks and dinners, quite a few times they come to me and say, well, we didn't quite understand that. Can you just go through that again? I said, of course I can. And it may be not Kent way, but this is the way I remember it, and this is the way I learn, and whatever. And it was fantastic, to be honest, to see when they passed. The joy on their face and like the relief on their face was brilliant, So it was the two courses that stand out for me are those, and I don't think you can beat them. It's one, getting into the job and starting to live your dream, if you like, and the other one was to be able to sit back and see the fellas go through what you went through, from coming off the street and thinking I'm never going to pass this because there's so much information coming in, to passing at the end, knowing that they've now got a career ahead of them, and hopefully they can have as good a career what I've had,
I think that's why a lot of people should, if they ever get the opportunity, be involved in the training departments or their training development departments, whatever they call them, because it does give you a sort of really reinvigorates the purpose behind why you joined, and seeing other people who are hungry, who are really, excited and really thankful for being able to get put in a position like this. See them going through those early stages themselves it's contagious,
Yes, without doubt. Yeah. I mean, for me, like I say, it was a complete breath of fresh air, one, going back to basics and doing what I enjoyed doing. But it was, I say, for me, it was, I love training people as well, and to see them develop, and to see the blokes who have, if they come off the street from day one to when we finished our training course, our 20-week training course, and the improvements that were made. I can honestly say, I mean, and people know you do, you get one bloke on the course you think he's a complete numpty, or he loves everyone. But the course I was on, I can honestly say, every one of them were top blokes, and I'll be more than happy to go on any station and serve with them. I'm very lucky in respect of getting a course like that, to be honest.
Love that. Before we wrap it up, I wanted to ask you a few bits around mental health and issues around, staying motivated or keeping that balance throughout your career. You've mentioned obviously through the on-call, and then through the whole time, and through the airport, and through, the role that you're doing now, coming back as a recruit. I wanted to ask you about how you've balanced being in the job and dealing with some of those things, because I know you've worked with people that have taken their lives as well, that we've worked with in the job, and you've been part of a number of unfortunate circumstances. How you have dealt with that, and sort of what of advice you can think of, or what your reflections are on them.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen quite a bit, to be honest, but yeah, you're right. It's I've had a colleague who was a very hard time to go with, but I was sitting around the table at him 12 o'clock at night, having a cup of tea and laughing and joking, and he went home that day and committed suicide. And picked up his children, drove them to his mum and dad's, and then went off and done it. And when I was on duty the next day, and the station manager coming in with tears in his eyes, and it is hard to take. You sit back and think, Christ, could I have done anything that night? Did I miss something?
Yeah.
And you question and question and question yourself. And I'm back on it now, and I don't think I could have done, because to me it was normal. It was, I had no idea at all what was going through his head, or whether it was going through his head.
That's what's so petrifying, isn't it? One of my colleagues took their life last month, and you just fucking hell. You like to think you've got some emotional intelligence. You like to think you're a good conversationalist and that you're a good listener, and you just think, where did that come from? Fucking, that was a complete miss. Did not see that at all.
It absolutely hits you out of the blue, and you do question yourself. Like I say, you'll think when you ask someone if they're okay, or you're laughing and joking with them, and you have no idea, like I say, I mean, I don't take things to work with me, so I can appreciate that as well. But perhaps he didn't. Perhaps he kept his personal life to himself. He's come in work. He's put on his face, but underneath he was. And it's trying to know those people, I think, and sometimes I don't think you can do, and you shouldn't put blame on yourself. It happened, and it's a very sad place in my career, and I still remember the fella today, obviously, and I still remember, I say these pictures are so vivid in my mind, where you can see them sitting there opposite, smiling and laughing and joking, and these things happen. But it's hard, and I don't know whether you ever do get over it. I think your mind's a very powerful thing, where you push those things to the back of your head, and you try and remember all the good times, when you pulled someone out of a building, or when you've saved someone, in a car accident or something like that. And when you've done these fundraising events where the kids are laughing and joking, and and you remember all those. But there are times when you sit on your own and you reflect back, and they're not good times, and I think you'd be wrong to say that they don't affect you in some way. I had the other incident, like I've mentioned to you, where we playing a charity football match, and one of my colleagues collapsed right in front of us. And people talk about this antagonal breathing that you get when someone's basically dying, and that was him, and I was standing right next to him when he collapsed, so I was virtually first there. The rest of my colleagues run over, and we're giving CPR, and we had no equipment that we normally carry on the machine. It was kind of hands and mouth. It was go, and I was clearing the vomit from his face and giving him mouth to mouth. I was gagging after every breath. I remember looking up and looking around at everyone, thinking, I've had enough. Can someone take over? And just looking at their faces, you think, no one wants to take over here, but I'm not going to let you die. So I carried on, and it's one of those things that the amazing thing is he survived, and he all got recommended for. But it was humbling to get that award, and it was humbling meeting his parents at the hospital when I went to visit him. But it's one. I remember driving home, and I could not stop crying. I kept bursting into tears, and it was. But to see him walk through the door again, and he's now in the service still. Yeah, it's phenomenal, really. And
crazy, brother.
It's and these things do affect you. I mean, now I'm getting choked up, but you sit back and think about these things. But again, it was a privilege to have that skill to do that.
Such a purity to that. There's such an almost a pure innocence to it, and I worry that how noisy the world is getting, that we lose sight of how important it is to keep doing these things and keep valuing these skill sets. Because I worry also that society in general, and I don't mean that as in the people, because I think people value the emergency services, but I want to continue to see it. And again, it's the big passion project with the podcast, to be honest, is that I want people to want to be part of the emergency services. I want people to applaud for our NHS. I want people to respect our police officers, and I want people to admire and thank fire and rescue services. But I'm worried that I'm worried as to how we're going to make the next 10 years the best 10 years the fire and rescue services or the emergency services has ever seen. And I know we're going through some big debates around pay and stuff now. What do you think the fire and rescue service looks like over the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, that's a hard one, Pete, isn't it? Because I mean, from when I joined, it was fantastic. We were having laughs, we were having jokes, and don't get me wrong. I mean, yeah, you look back and sometimes you think, did we go a little too far? Mm-hmm. We've got to portray this professional service, but we're human as well. We're not these robots. We don't act in a certain way. We will got our individual personalities, and as long as we don't step over that line and that mark, then you have to accept that. I mean, I've walked into Kent and there's a very corporate image going on, and things have been taken away and this been taken away, and you think, do these things really matter? Do people come on station and look around and think, oh, that's not very good, is it? Or that's not very good. I mean, even to the point where, in our kitchen, and hopefully I won't get in trouble over this, but they've asked us to take down our takeaway menus. It doesn't look a very good image.
Fucking behave yourself. Come on. Come on. Let's just calm down a little bit. I think there's bigger fish to fry. Do you know what I mean? The people major in minor things sometimes and they wonder why we lose that morale sometimes. You're like, come on, think about it. Yeah, know your audience.
And it's amazing. And you think this corporate image, okay, we appreciate we have to be professional service, but we are. When those bells go down, you watch the bloke switch on. There has to be downtime. There has to be relaxing time. And there's got to be times to unwind, because the things we go through, not just the fire service, the police, the ambulance service, like you said, the nurses, the things people see and are subjected to day in. And when the bells go down, or, that those emergency doors fly open, people are switched on and they do an incredible job. So it's all very well being a professional image, but I assure you that what the public see is definitely a professional image.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. If you accidentally attack one side of that coin, it will have an adverse effect on people's desire to be that professional that can operate when it matters, because they need to have that balance with it as well in order for them to do that. Yeah,
without a doubt.
100%.
And I'm hoping that all the services moving forward, that they get the recognition they deserve. And if things calm down a little bit, really, too much politics, I think, sometimes gets played, and I think just let the people do the jobs that they want to do. It comes down to individuals. You said, what's a happy station and what's not a happy station, and it's not the politics that are going on around it, because it's the same everywhere. It's the personnel on board. So get on with your job, enjoy your job, and let the powers that be sort the rest of it out. But it's hard to. I appreciate that, but it is a wonderful place out there, to be honest. There's some amazing people out there.
Dude, I've absolutely loved that. Really, really, really thankful for taking time out of your morning to come on and speak about your whole sort of journey and those different aspects to it. And it's inspiring to see the optimism that you still have, having been through almost every facet of what the UK Fire and Rescue Service has to offer. And my hope is that, even if in 5 or 10 years' time after you retire, perhaps even a little bit shorter than that people will be able to come back to this and see that you can withhold that and you can sustain that optimism later on into your career. Because I always say, and it's something the women in the fire service are big on, they always say, you have to see it to be it. And so many people think that. People always used to say to me, I'll wait till you've been in for 5 years, you won't feel that way about it. And then I'll wait till you've been in for 10 years. Now I'll wait till you've been in for 15 years. I'm whatever, 16, 17 years in. And, I look to people like yourself and go, I want to protect my mindset and protect my environment from people that are going to stop me from enjoying what I know I enjoy now for hopefully another 20 years. So that's my naive optimism. But seeing people having done that like yourself gives me faith that that's possible.
No, it is, Pete. I always tell my 2 children, I said, surround yourself with positive people and you'll be positive yourself. The negative people you can do without, to be honest, because the positive definitely outshine the negative, and that's what you got to look forward to.
Beautiful. Absolutely love that, brother. Thank you so much, mate, for taking time out your morning. Really, really appreciate it. I know we've tried a little bit to get this conversation together. You've been busy kicking ass and taking names all across Europe over the past sort of couple of months. So I'm so glad we were able to get this time together.
That's brilliant. And thanks for inviting me, Pete. It's been a pleasure chatting.
Firefighters podcast is put together to develop, inspire, and hopefully even motivate those individuals who have chosen to serve our communities and be part of the first responder family. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield. If you have enjoyed today's episode and you want to see the podcast continuing, please head over to our Patreon page where you can support the ongoing efforts of the podcast. Please hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on whatever platform you're listening to. Please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.